Okay, we good to go?
Always good to go.
I'm just chilling at Canada Life Center.
That's the hard-hitting analysis you listen to the Level Flight podcast for.
Here we go.
Jets are a brisket team, low and slow for the first two periods, and boom, an explosion of flavor in the last few minutes of the third.
Doing all right. Better if my internet would work.
Elliott.
This is comedy. I'm Brian. I'm joined by Connor.
Hello.
And Elliott.
Hey. Wow, that was fun.
You're listening to the Level Flight podcast.
Welcome into episode 95 of the Level Flight podcast. A bit of a milestone, maybe a teaser up until episode 100, which is right around the corner. But we've got a full crew here today. My name is Connor, joined by Brian and Elliott. Fellas, how are we doing?
Doing really well. I'm a little bit tired. Spent my entire day at the ballpark yesterday, but home opener went off fairly well. Big win for the Gold Eyes, and we're ready to do it again tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I mean, can't really complain. CBL season's underway. See Bears Rattlers tonight. Gonna have my nerves right through the ceiling, and should be great.
Yeah, I'm pumped. I mean, I said it on last episode. This is the week where all the summer sports are getting going. The Bombers played their first preseason game. Gold Eyes home opener. I mean, they had gotten going, the Gold Eyes, but coming home is a different feeling. And then the CBL actually gets underway with their season opener and the Seabears home opener this week. So exciting times in Winnipeg, but we are going to get into that later on. We want to start. We are a hockey podcast. We are a Jets podcast, but as we were saying before we were recording, I don't think there's any news to talk about.
Not at all.
So I mean,
you gotta get more creative coming up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Quizzes come back.
Bring back the quizzes. Might have to. We are going to talk about hockey first, though, and there is 4 teams left in the NHL playoffs. Super exciting time. Oilers, Stars, Panthers, Rangers. Panthers, Rangers. Actually, we're recording this Wednesday morning. That series starts tonight. Oilers, Stars starts tomorrow night in Dallas. I don't know about you guys, but before we get into who we think is going to win the series and everything, does this not feel like it's the 4 best teams in the league in the Final Four?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like I wasn't on the episode that you guys proclaimed it, but the idea of Dallas being that team in the West, it took them a bit. Like that Golden Knights series for them felt very taxing, but since then they have looked like the team that we had spoken so highly of all year. So you get them. Obviously, we know what the Oilers are capable of, and then the 2 division winners in the East, where absolute powerhouses, and it has the makings. And I always say this, and then there's going to be some weird lopsided series that you wouldn't expect. But I have a feeling that this could be one of the better conference finals we've seen in the past several years.
Yeah. I mean, one of those series that is more lopsided than you expect was New York, Carolina. If there was a team in the East where I think they'd be better than the 2 that are in the conference finals, it might be Carolina. But then they went down 3-0 quick to the Rangers, albeit in overtime games. It was kind of fluky that they went down 3-0, made it a series and then lost. Maybe they're better than Florida in the end, if you really think about it. But I don't know. I think these are the best 4 teams. Do you agree, Elliott? Best 4 teams in the league in the Final Four?
Probably is. I don't really think there's much to debate there. The Rangers have been probably my pick to win the cup the entire year. They've been so dominant. Obviously, yes, Dallas is good. I think to me, realistically, I get they have the best player in the league, and it's kind of hard to not put them in the top 4. You could maybe say the Oilers are a little bit of an outsider just for how their season has gone, and with their that thing between the pipes that they just can't seem to figure out. And hilariously, the team that they played against figured it out with multiple different goaltenders.
With an AHL starter.
Yeah. I don't know if Shelob's gonna be an AHL starter for much longer. That's
he played outstanding. Yeah, it was great.
But goalies, as Brian always says, are voodoo, and you never know. He might have a 750 save percentage next year in 4 games. I don't know.
Exactly.
Either way.
Yeah.
the only team I can really say is maybe a bit of an outlier is Edmonton, but they also have the star power, right? So I do
And they
feel
also
for Dallas. I feel for just quickly. I feel
Yeah.
for Dallas because they go and have to play a loaded top 6 in the Avs with Middlestat and Rantanen and McKinnon, and then they have to go play in the next series against a team that plays similarly and has a similar makeup of team in McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, and
exactly.
Nugent Hopkins, right? So it's just kind of funny that they got to play essentially the same team like twice in a row. And maybe Edmonton's a little bit better than the Avs, but yeah, I'm super excited for it, especially the Eastern Conference series. I'm super excited for.
Yeah, and well, let's get into that now. I wanted to say on the Oilers, I do agree that they do feel like somewhat of an outsider when you're looking at the 4 teams. But then you look at their record, like under Chris Knobloch, and I'm pretty sure it's like the best in the league, or it's the best in the West since that point. Yes, they struggled to beat Vancouver, and you're only as good as your last game, if that's the way you want to take it. Like you're only as good as your last series against the Canucks. But I don't know. I could totally see them just take over this series with their power play that won them a couple games against Vancouver. Maybe Skinner finds his footing, wins them a game or two, and they could totally be in the Cup Finals. I could see it. I still think Dallas should be the favorite. And
for sure.
At that. But again, these are the 4 best teams in the league, I think. And that's rarer than you think to get the 4 best teams in the conference finals, because usually there's a second round matchup between like the 2 best teams, especially in the current playoff format. Sometimes there's a first round matchup where it's the 2 best teams. Like Dallas Vegas might have been that this year, but I don't know. There's sometimes a first round matchup where it's the 2 best teams in a conference. That happens in the second round too. But to get these 4 teams in the conference finals, I'm super pumped. Let's start with Panthers Rangers. Elliott, you brought it up. Let's just predict these series. Who do we think is going to win? Brian, I'll start with you. Panthers Rangers. Paul Maurice versus Blake Wheeler. Who's winning it?
Which
don't forget
I will
Jacob
start by
Trouba.
saying
Roslovic.
There apparently is an off chance that Blake Wheeler might be able to suit up in the series, and I want just like a game or 2 for him, just so he can get, if they go all the way, get the ring, get the name on the cup.
Do you have to play a game for that?
I believe so, because there was that whole Chemo Timonen thing back in, I don't know what year it was, where he had to play like 1 game just so he could be on. I think maybe in like 2015 for Chicago.
Okay, so it's different than the NBA then, because as long as you're on the roster, you don't have to play.
Right.
As long as you're on the roster, or there's
play.
Actually a rule where even if you're on the roster for like hours, you get a ring because you were a part of the
team
roster.
At all.
Yeah, then you get one. Okay.
But no, like I feel like this series has the makings of one that could either go the distance or end quicker than someone might think, purely because of the ability to score at will for both teams. And we saw what happened with that game 6 against Carolina, where Chris Kreider just said, you know what, I'm going to take over here. I'm going to score a natural hat trick to erase a deficit and put us ahead. And then just like that, the series was over. So I feel like, for me, I'm leaning Rangers. I think it'll be Rangers in either 6 or 7. I don't see it ending any earlier than 6 games, just because of how competitive it's going to be. And I just think you're going to get a very, very rough series that is going to be heavy hitting. Yeah. It's going to be fast, and there's going to be a lot to watch in terms of, the offensive games. And, as we've mentioned, there's a lot of Jets connections here. Obviously, with New York, you got Wheeler, Trouba, Roslovic, and then in Florida, you've got Maurice, Kevin Stenlund, and Dmitry Kulikov. So
Stenlund.
Assembling the former Jets to, reach new heights. But no, I'm interested in seeing how far it goes, just because of how intense it's going to be. But Elliott, what are you thinking?
It's probably Rangers in 6, to be honest. That's kind of where I'm at. I don't know. I think it's going to be, like you said, Brian, it's going to be fast. I don't know if it's going to be as heavy hitting as like Boston, Florida was, but I think that there'll probably be a little bit of physicality, nothing too out of the ordinary. Like, I don't know. I just think it's going to be more fast paced and more offense, right? You talk about Chris Kreider. He's probably he showed it in game 6 against the Hurricanes. He's probably my X factor for this series, at least for the Rangers, just because he's done that so many times. He's one of my favorite non-Jets players in the entire league. Like I love him. He's really good. I don't know. The media just likes to hype up all the fights and stuff, and I kind of steer away from that because, like, let's please talk about the actual hockey that's going to be played, because that's the actual good product, and not Matt Rempe is going to fight Matthew Tkachuk because it's this whole like.
That's why I think this is going to be a rough series. Like, you put Tkachuk, Trouba, and Rempe on the same ice. What happens?
You also got guys like Lomberg and everyone. In that Florida bottom 6 there. That it's gonna. I do think it's gonna get rough. That's the thing. Like, there's the ability. Like, the second that one questionable hit happens from Jacob Trouba, which it will, then
he's gonna snap his own neck.
It'll just descend into chaos.
Yeah. And I think, Elliott, you bring up a great point, like the pace of this series. It's going to be so interesting to see that balance, because I agree with both of you. The series could be rough and it could be fast, but which one like sort of prevails? Like, is it is it a slugfest game 1? Is it a 2-1 Panthers win? Or is it a 5-4 game with like little to no big hits? Like, I don't know. The series, the style of this series, I think, is a lot less predictable than the next one that we're going to talk about.
I should have worn my Rangers jersey for this episode.
I will say, too, the one thing that nobody's talking about that I'm also really intrigued by is the goaltender matchup, right? Like, you've got Sergei Bobrovsky, who I know he was one of the best goaltenders in the league playing for Columbus, and he came over to Florida. I really think that as much as he's had his struggles at times, he's one of the more underrated goaltenders now in the league. Like, I think
he got nominated for the
contract. Everyone looks at the money and says, like, oh, it's going to be so hard to live up to this. And for those couple of years there where he was just god awful, it was. But then last couple seasons, he has, almost single-handedly kept them in certain games and then allowed the Florida forward group to take over.
Yep. And then obviously you have Shesterkin on the other side, who I think had a just wonderful series against the Hurricanes. So I don't know. I think there's not really much to dislike in this matchup, right? Like,
no,
that's why I think it's my favorite out of the two, because we're going to get different styles of hockey. I think we're going to get different types of games. Like, Connor, I think you're right. I think there's going to be a game in this series where somebody wins 1-0 or 2-0 on an empty netter, and it's just a slugfest. And then I'm also going to say that I think there's probably going to be a game where it finishes like 8-7 in overtime. Like, I think there's going to be something crazy. I don't know.
Oh, it's a lot of goals. That's a lot of goals for a conference finals game. I don't know. We got to search up how many times that's happened in NHL history. I don't know.
ESPN.
Anytime it's happened after like 1991.
Right. Yeah. Yes. You got to start at a certain point. No, but the goaltending, I think both of them have the ability to steal games, and both like power plays are really good. I definitely would give the Rangers the special teams advantage when you look at both penalty kill and power play, which maybe gives them the upper hand in this series. I think I'm still going to take the Panthers. I worry, like, Barkov left that game 6 late with a hand injury. I don't know how he's going to look. I remember last year in the Cup Finals, like, Tkachuk was playing through like a broken fibula or something. I don't know. Something crazy.
Didn't he have wasn't a broken sternum?
Sternum.
He had to have, like, help
even
putting
look at
his
Jarvis
equipment
this
on.
year.
Jarvis, yeah, that was nuts.
Like, what is it with these guys, man? Like, just
I know.
sit. Like,
take the time.
I get you want to play, but like, Jesus.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like, it's really going to come down to me to who's more healthy, and we're not going to know that until whoever's winning the series, because these teams are so evenly matched. The goaltenders are so good. The power plays are so good. And there's star players on both sides, and I'm super pumped for it. I'm going to take the Panthers in 7. I think it's going to be a long series. Elliott, what's your prediction before we move on to Oilers? Or did you say you like the Rangers? You like the Rangers in 6. Brian took the Rangers at 6 or 7. I'm taking Panthers in 7. It's going to be a long series.
I just want you guys to know.
You know what's going to happen? Panthers in 5. That's what's going to happen. Just because.
Rangers in 4.
Rangers in 4.
Panthers in 3. Okay, let's move on to the
Hold on, before we move
Yeah.
on, you wanted to know the most goals in a playoff game by a team.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to count all these ones from the Oilers. There's actually one from the Kings in 90. So Brian, you're cut off by a year. The highest total is the Penguins had 10 in 2012, but that was in April 18th of 2012. So that's probably a first round matchup back in the day, right?
Matchup, yeah.
One of the ones that caught my eye here was this would have been June 13th, 2023. The Vegas Golden Knights put up 9 in a game.
That's when they won the cup.
Yeah,
that was the game they won the cup.
So not that long ago, a Stanley Cup final game.
There you
had
go.
9 goals in it. So 8-7 in overtime is not that off.
Could happen. I remember that because it completely took the air out of their Stanley Cup celebration because they had won since like the first period. Like they went up like 5-0 and it was just a party. And then when they won the cup, it was like, yeah, we know. It was like we've known for 2 hours that they're winning the cup. It's like it was
there was no intensity.
I didn't like that. Yeah. You needed like a Alec Martinez OT winner to win the cup.
Oh God. You're making Rangers fans have PTSD.
True. Okay. Let's move on. Let's move on to the Western Conference Finals. Stars Oilers. Brian, where are you leaning in this series? Where do you see where the Stars have the advantage if that's who you're picking, or the Oilers vice versa? Where are you leaning in this Western Conference Finals matchup?
See, I have, unlike the Eastern Conference, I actually have like a clear cut. I know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
I am taking the Stars in 6.
Okay.
I think that their game is conducive to stopping. We saw it against the Avs. Stopping that rush chance from these guys that are so incredibly fast and elusive. And I saw a thing too where I think that the best trade deadline acquisition by anyone was Chris Tanev. Him and Miro Heiskanen have absolutely done wonders with each other, and they are outscoring the top line center on the 2 respective teams they've played. I think 6-1 when the Tanev pairing is on the ice. So you're getting outstanding defensive play, but they do it in the way that it slows the other team down. And if you slow the Oilers down, you're going to win, because their whole game is predicated on the idea that you're probably going to have to beat them with speed. And I think that you have Dallas's defensive ability, and then you also have the fact that they have legitimate elite scoring talent against a goalie in Stuart Skinner, who has not looked good in a while. And I think it's got the makings of a Dallas, defensive masterclass. And even if McDavid breaks out, I just don't know if it'll be enough with what they're going up against.
And another thing, like you mentioned all the things Dallas has, and you didn't even talk about Jake Ottinger, who's been fantastic in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Like our biggest thing with the Stars going into the playoffs was they have it all, but Jake Ottinger is a sub 900 goaltender. And if he puts it together, watch out. And guess what? He's put it together, and the rest of the team has stayed the same. Chris Tanev, like you said, has been fantastic. They're a wagon. I think they're going to win the cup. So I'm also taking the Stars. I'll take them in 6 as well. I do think the Oilers win 2 games in the series. I did just take Stars in 6, but I think they win a few games in the series on the backs of their power play. Maybe McDavid and Draisaitl connect for some magic, maybe in both of the home games there. But I do think the goaltending advantage will win out. The Stars are a deeper team. They just handled the team, like you said, that is predominantly a rush team in the Avalanche. I really like the Stars. And then when we get to the cup final, I'm going to like the Stars as well. Elliott, where are you at in this series?
It's the same thing. It's the Stars just played a team that played a similar style, and they looked like they could handle it. So I don't know. This Stars team to me is really versatile in that they can play a bunch of, like, they can play a slow defense. We saw them do it against the Jets. The Jets are a slow defensive kind of grinded out team. Mm-hmm. Stars handled them in every game. Yeah. The Stars can play up and down with people. They can adapt the way that their structure works is just, it's so good. Yeah. To the point where it's like, it's so hard to pick anybody else when in the matchup. So I don't know. As much as the Oilers could have a little bit of magic left, and McDavid could go for 3, like have a hat trick, win them a game, or have a 3-assist game and they win. The Stars have enough offensive star power to keep up with the Oilers, I think, enough, while their defense is also really, like, their structure and their defensive core is so much better than the Oilers. So I don't know. I want to be a homer for a Canadian team and cheer for the Oilers. It's like you run into.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I'll be cheering for the Oilers because this whole playoff run, once the Jets were out, I said I want to see Connor McDavid win a cup. So I'm going to be cheering for the Oilers in this series, but I just don't think they win. Yeah. Maybe if McDavid went to the Leafs. No, I'm kidding.
Well, I mean, I was talking about this with someone the other. Go on. I was talking about this with someone the other day, and I think the only hope that the Oilers have is if somehow McDavid ups his level even more. But even still, I think the NHL is not a league where you can, unless it's a goalie, like excluding goaltenders, position players, I just don't see a world where one guy can influence a 7-game series that much. It doesn't matter if you're Connor McDavid. I truly think that, obviously they've got Leon Draisaitl and they've been scoring, loads with him on the ice. But at the end of the day, it's Connor McDavid that you're most worried about. And I think that in some leagues you can rely on your sheer star power to totally take over. I don't know if the NHL is one of those leagues because, inevitably there's going to be someone on your team that is just not good enough and they're playing, between 10 and 15 minutes a night. And in those 10 to 15 minutes, it's not good. Like you look at that Oilers defense group, I don't like it one bit. Like
neither do I.
Cody Ceci scored in the playoff game.
Evan Bouchard
in games
a lot. Then what? Nurse maybe.
Well, Ekholm. I'd put Bouchard and Ekholm. They need to play like 25 minutes a night.
Yeah.
As the top
everyone else.
Because I think Nurse can make a difference, but he's not.
He's struggling in a big way.
Yeah.
And look, to your point, like Nathan McKinnon won a cup. But it was when the Avalanche were stacked from top to bottom of their lineup and had a league average goaltending, but that didn't they got it to the point where that didn't matter because their bottom 6 and their third pairing was so good that even when they're the best player in the league or one of the best, Nathan McKinnon wasn't on the ice, they were still outscoring opponents. Like I 100% agree with your point. I think no matter if you have
I'm going to pull a page out of Elliott's book here.
Oh boy.
These aren't the LeBron Cavs where you just have a bunch of dudes who are break-even bench players and then LeBron just dragging them, to game 7 of the NBA Finals. And I truly think that there's no comparable to sort of what's happened there to what could happen in the NHL, where it's not going to be like the rest of the Oilers are getting absolutely punished out there, and then McDavid's going to go off for like 8 points. That's the only way it happens.
Yeah, and look, like in the NBA, you could play the whole game. In the NHL, you can't play 60 minutes, or else you'll just be exhausted. So
unless you're a goaltender, but
unless you're exactly, and then goaltending can win a series for sure. I do think that this series, they will be close games, I think, but the Stars goaltending, the depth will win out. And I 100% agree with your point. I think even though this is the best chance and the best team the Oilers have had in the McDavid era, I'd say, I still don't think it's good enough. And I think it leads to Ken Holland being out of there this offseason, which I think is long overdue.
It's holding them back having Ken Holland in charge because he seems to have this idea of what's needed for a team and then continuously doesn't implement it properly.
I have so many issues, and I brought this up on our trade deadline show. You have 2 years left of Draisaitl, 3 years left of McDavid. They're both in their prime, and your deadline acquisition is Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick. You clap your hands and you call it a day. Like, no, This is the best chance you're gonna have.
And Henrique's
it.
barely even played. Like,
Henrique's
and Carrick
been
was out of the
hurt.
lineup. Yeah.
Henrique's been hurt, which is like not their fault. But my whole point is that can't be it. Every first round pick for the next 3 years should be on the table. What is your next year's first round pick or the year after that? Why does that matter? Or the second round pick or the third round pick? Picks shouldn't matter. They should be the Florida Panthers of 2 years ago or last year, where they just had no picks, because it's like,
or Vegas.
When McDavid is 32, you're done, or he's gone somewhere else. Like, I have so many issues with that, but that's a whole nother rant for another episode. Just a quick note on maybe the Sea Bears, Elliott, as their season gets underway. And then we talked about it off the top. The Goldeyes, they won their home opener 6-1. They're back in action tonight through Sunday. Goldeyes.com/tickets. They'll be taking on the Chicago Dogs. And then I don't know who the second team is that comes to town.
Lake Country Dockhounds.
The Lake Country Dockhounds. So that's the week for the Goldeyes. Come to the ballpark. The new scoreboard's really cool. Elliott, season opener. It's awesome.
Is it awesome? I haven't seen it yet.
You got to come by. You got to come to a game. It's really something.
That's the plan.
Yeah. Elliott, season opener tonight for the Sea Bears against the Saskatchewan Rattlers, and then home Friday against the Scarborough Shooting Stars, I believe.
Yes.
But
yes, you are correct.
The season is underway. CEBL season.
Yeah, so last night was the Battle of Alberta, Calgary versus Edmonton, and
broke a record.
Yes, they broke a record for 12,800 or 500, something like that. Mm-hmm. They all went home, unlike the Goldeyes. They went home upset because the Stingers, as for some reason, me and many of the other reporters and not the sports bookies predicted incorrectly. The sports bookies predicted incorrectly. Stingers just rolled over the Surge. They dominated the game the entire game. They were all over them. But Sea Bears, Rattlers, another rivalry game. We get
Prairies.
We get a Prairie matchup, which
is the Labor Day Classic.
I see, and you say Labor Day Classic. I want the CEBL. Hopefully, they're listening. Also, Mike Morreale is a football guy. Unfortunately, they named the name of the rivalry incorrectly. They said this was a Banjo Bowl type matchup, and it really confused me for a section. And I was like, because they're not at home.
They're not in Winnipeg. Come on,
they're not in Winnipeg. Yeah. Either way. Yeah, it should be a really good game. If obviously CEBL Plus is free this year, so it's not on. It's on TSN Plus as well if you have it. It's not on TV tonight, like on cable tonight, just because it's not game of the week / another nationally coverage game. But it's on CBL Plus, which is free this year. You can go on the CBL website, go grab that and watch the game tonight. It should be really, really good. Obviously, the reigning MVP is in action tonight, and it's against a more of a renewed Rattlers team that has a couple new pieces. Brought in Jalen Harris. They have a new coach, Larry Abney, who coached it for the G League LA Clippers affiliate, the Ontario Clippers. He's brought in a couple of his guys from that team, so it should be really good. I'm really interested to see how this team for the Sea Bears gels, just because obviously Teddy needs his shots, and they've brought in a lot of other guys who like to take shots. So we'll see how that goes. Apparently, from what I heard from people who were at training camp, shout out Joey Slattery for giving me the inside just because I couldn't make it last week. He said that lots of guys are gelling together. They're kind of figuring out roles and that sort of thing. Crazy that we already have injury news too. It's Tyler Segal, who would have been in the lineup for tonight, is currently nursing an injury. He's on the trip, apparently, just as extra, just in case.
The long, grueling road trip of one game in Saskatchewan. he made it.
Well, but he's not on the active roster, right? So he's not going to get a chance to play. So I was intrigued why they brought him along. But Darren Watts of U of M actually gets his spot while they're also waiting for David Muinkat still to come over from Germany. His season is not over yet. So congrats to Darren, because it's great that he gets an opportunity to play in the team. And so it should be good. It should be a Sea Bears win. As much as this is a renewed Rattlers team, I'm not that threatened by this roster. The entire league has gotten better, and the Sea Bears are deeper this year. Teddy should still go off for 25. he should still get his own, but they actually should have some help this year. So
Yeah,
it should be good. Get a chance to watch it if you can. If you're not watching the Gold Eyes game at 6:30, actually, games are about 2 hours, right?
2.5.
Yeah, 2.5.
It was 2:41 last night.
Seabears game starts at 8:30, so you can essentially watch the Gold Eyes game and transition right into the Seabears game at 8:30. So
there you go. And you brought up the fact that CBL Plus is free, also free this year. I think we've brought this up many times on the pod, but aabaseball.tv can watch every Gold Eyes game. You can watch the great production that Brian and I contribute to in the press box. I'll be behind the camera tonight. Brian will be doing the graphics on the stream, but go check that out. If you can't watch the games on your phone or on your laptop, tune in. Maybe you're driving 93.7 CJNU, Trevor Curl, voice of the Gold Eyes. And then
Just
watch the Seabears on CBL Plus.
Oh, and something I forgot to add because this was a late edition. You can also listen on the radio. They have a deal for select games with CJOB 680.
Right. Yes.
So if you can't watch the game and like Connor said, you're in the car, tune in on CJOB as well. There's a listing on their website for which games. I can't remember off the top of my head. I knew this was one of them just because it was the first game. So
yeah. All right. That's about it. The Bombers aren't in action until May 31st, another preseason game. So their preseason's taking a little bit longer. But there are sports starting here in Winnipeg. It's an exciting time. Unless we have anything else here, are we ready to close the curtain on episode 95?
I think so. I just find it impressive that despite having zero Jets news to talk about, we still managed to go 30 minutes. And that's the power of great conversation.
Wow, so inspiring. Such an inspiring way to end episode 95.
Shout out our communications degrees that we're working with here.
Yeah. When people ask what you learn in a communications degree,
shout out David.
How to just yap.
Yeah, shout out David.
Yeah. Exactly. Let's get out of here. Episode 95. Thanks for listening. You will next see us Sunday at 9 a.m. LFP Live on YouTube. Join us. We're really excited to get back to it. We didn't do it over May long, but we're back Sunday at 9 a.m. So join us then. We'll have breakdowns of the 2 Seabears games this week, all the Gold Eyes games, and that's a little bit of a pregame show too for the Gold Eyes game. That is at 1 o'clock on Sunday. So we're super pumped to join us then. Until then, enjoy the hockey games that start tonight. Panthers, Rangers, Oilers, Stars. It's going to be 2 great series. So enjoy the games this week. Head out to a Gold Eyes game and a Seabears game. And we will see you on Sunday at 9 a.m. Have a great couple days, everyone. See you.
See ya.
Peace.